Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Toronto Sports Rush channel. The Toronto Maple Leafs have just ended a victory. It's a victory, Pierre. My name's Kyle. I'm joined by Pierre McGuire. You know, Pierre, in all fairness of things lately, we've been harsh on the Leafs and they've earned that harshness. But today felt like the kind of game that can start to turn things around for them a little bit, didn't it?
I'm smiling like a butcher's dog, to coin a phrase from my old buddy, the late Mike Lang of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Ironically so, as they beat the Pittsburgh Penguins today. But to me, the biggest thing is the coach needed to make a difference today, Kyle,
Mhm.
and he did. Look at some of the line combinations. Matthias Michelli plays on a line with John Tavares and also Willie Nylander. Line works. Bobby
Mhm.
McMahon goes on a line with Max Domi and Austin Matthews. For most of the game, the line worked. You look at the
Yeah.
addition of Christopher Tanev back in the lineup. He does a real good job. I saw stuff that makes me smile because this is what I expect from the Leafs. Now, is Pittsburgh a world-class team that's going to be a Stanley Cup contender? No, they're not this year. Baby steps. This is a very good step for the Leafs going into the break.
Couldn't agree more, Pierre. There's good out there. There was bad out there. There's a lot to break down. Pittsburgh's not the best team in the world. The Leafs, by no means, have turned this ship around, but this is
No.
the type of step they need to take to get there. We saw a lot of things happen tonight for the first time in a while. Nylander scores for the first time in 11 games. Michelli scores for the first time in 11 games. And as you pointed out a moment ago to me privately, number 11, Domi, scored his first goal in 24 games. And that was the type of goal in the type of moment I feel can be a difference maker for a team long term. They needed an electric play. It was a solo effort, and if any player on this team needed that, it was him.
And you know what was really good about it was a hockey sense play. He sees
Yeah.
Brett Kulak, the defenseman who just came over from Edmonton in that big deal for with Tristan Jarry and also Stuart Skinner. He sees that it's a lefty on the right side of the ice. He's not messing around. He's taking him right to the net, Kyle, and he does a great job taking him to the net. And he finishes a playoff, and that kind of got the crowd going. That got the bench going, and that just gave him enough fuel down the stretch to finish the game off properly. Good for Max Domi for doing that. I'm sure Ty, his father, was thrilled to death to watch that play. But as a person that scouted for a long time, I'm watching for the hockey sense in that play, and it's Domi identifying the fact that Kulak's a left shot, and he's very uncomfortable playing on the right side, and he took him to town on it.
Yeah, he really did. And Nylander, of course, not only came back with his first goal and considerable amount of time given who he is and where he stands with this hockey team in the broader NHL, but he ended up with a 2-goal, 2-assist performance. You know, on the heels of the firing, which we'll talk about later, that these types of performances for this team, maybe it was a wake-up call they needed. Who really knows?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that part of it, but
Yeah.
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll just say this: the coach had to make a difference tonight, and he did.
Mhm.
Putting Willie with Johnny and with Michelli was good. Michelli played a real solid game, I thought.
Mhm.
And here's the biggest thing: Tavares was over 70% in the faceoff circle. So when you're playing with skilled guys that need to have the puck, Nylander and Michelli, two skilled guys need to have the puck. That faceoff play stuff matters a lot, and Johnny Tavares deserves a lot of credit. Unsung hero of the game for all that
Yeah.
faceoff win. You win over 70% of your faceoffs against a pretty good faceoff team like Pittsburgh. That's a heck of a job by Johnny.
Yeah, and the Leafs have still the one constant they've had this season is they've been very, very strong on the faceoff. And again, it's a building
They're the
block.
best team in the league. They're the
Best team
best
in the
team in the
league,
league with
but
faceoffs.
it just hasn't amounted to much for them today. But here's the thing, you know, we discussed this, their inability to put together 3 decent periods of hockey in a single game. I mean, they had 3 decent periods last week. They just weren't all in the same game. But tonight, I thought, with the exception of the first minute of the third period, they were pretty good. Like they were playing positionally fairly well. There's a couple guys on the ice, and we'll get to them, that we didn't think were great tonight, but it seemed as though they were engaged for the full 60 minutes more or less tonight. And it's almost it's wild to say at this level of professional sports. That's one of those baby steps you alluded to that they needed to take.
Agreed. So here's the biggest thing I saw too that I think is important to your point, Cal. You
Mhm.
go up 3-1 in the game. Looks like you're
Yeah.
home and cooled out. You let your guard down a couple times. All of a sudden it's 3-3. They're pushing. Pittsburgh is pushing. They're dominating the first little bit of the third period, and it's 3-3. You're Toronto. You get a power play. A guy takes Michelli takes a penalty. It's 4-on-4. Then Pittsburgh takes a penalty. Ben Kindle. Then you're on the power play again. You don't score. They could have said, "Oh my gosh, woe is me," but they don't. They hung together, they hung tight, and they got the job done, excuse me, and I thought it was great. I really appreciated their dogged determination of
Yeah.
staying in the game for a full 60.
Yeah, and again, it's just a big moment. Listen, Tanev is back in the lineup tonight. He's definitely rusty, but completely understandably so, given how long he's been out and how he went out. They must be relieved to just have him back out there. He'll shake the rust off quick.
How about the composure, though? I'm watching him make some plays with the puck that usually he
Yeah,
wouldn't make. He made some real good plays with the puck. The other team knows when he's out there, so that helps a lot
that's
too.
mhm.
And one of the things that Pittsburgh likes to do a lot, they like to attack your right defense, their left side. And for whatever reason, it wasn't happening as much. If you watch, there was a lot of attack from Toronto's left side, Pittsburgh's right side tonight, which I thought was very interesting. I think part of that is because Tanev was playing.
Yeah, it was a good, not a great first game back, but the thing about him, he plays the game like he's really up here in the game. He's a very smart hockey
Yeah,
player.
he
He
is.
knows the mistakes he made. He knows some of the coverage he blew, and it's not. Listen, it wasn't like a crippling performance by any means. He's
Yeah.
going to be back, and again, that guy that can move the puck, you could see it instantly. The confidence with which now they could exit the zone when he's on the ice, and that makes a very big difference. Let's keep going through some of this gameplay here tonight. Geez, I thought Wall was pretty good most of the night. The Penguins, they're awfully good at creating traffic in front of the net, aren't they, Pierre?
They have big bodies and they do that. And what
Yeah.
they do a lot is they use a load of high play. That's a
Mhm.
Peter Laviolette thing, by the way, and that's who their coach Dan Muse used to work for, both in Nashville and in New York. So if you watch, they move the puck from the icing line out to the blue line, go D to D, and then pile drive pucks on goal, and they jam the net. So you're spot on with that. And I thought Joe Wold did a very good job fighting through traffic,
Yeah.
which was really good. I thought there were some timely saves that he had to make, which was very good. But to me, the biggest thing is they've got to identify Toronto much quicker in their own zone where their areas are, because a lot of guys still like. I hate to pick on the guy. Matthew Nice had a tough night tonight, and he had a
Pierre,
tough
yeah.
night physically, and he had a tough night in his own zone, and that's got to get better for him. And I don't know if he was pouting because he wasn't playing with Matthews, but tough luck. That's what the coach decided to do, and you got to be man enough and step up and deliver.
There's one of the few message exchanges we had tonight during the game because we normally do have a little bit of a back and forth. Matthew Nice was getting bullied off the puck tonight, and
Mhm.
we are as guilty as anyone. We speculated that that was the strength they were getting with him with this contract signing, renewing him, bringing him back on this hockey team, and that just can't happen. Like he
No.
is too prototypically strong on the puck type of player, but he's not playing that way. And if he doesn't understand that that's his strength, he's going to have a very long season.
It's going to be tough because they're going to start to crack the whip. You can see it. Look, they sacrificed the assistant coach, Mark Savard, because the power play didn't do well. People were crying for red meat. They got their red meat. Mark
Yeah.
Savard's no longer part of it. We'll see what Derek Lalonde can do with the power play. Maybe he doesn't even take it over. The power play didn't do much again tonight. I think you would agree.
Well, Pierre, we went the whole game with no penalties, and then there were suddenly three in about 40 seconds. So I don't really know that anyone could get organized on that.
I
But
was like, holy mackerel, what are they going to
I'm
do?
like, I'm not sure. Like the Leafs had, I think, 11 seconds of power play and then 31 seconds of power play at the end of it. So I don't think it's a fair assessment of
No,
anything
it's
at that
not.
point because
No,
they played
no.
4-4. Then they were 4-3 for a while. Actually, I shouldn't
Yeah.
have said it that way, but not much amounted from that. But we have no idea if their power play is going to improve at this point. But we've talked about this. Savard, in fairness, we unfortunately recorded McGuire Monday before he was let go by the Maple Leafs yesterday, but he was very much the sacrificial lamb. As you said, they had to sacrifice someone to the fan base who wanted a head on a stick. And I feel bad for him right before Christmas because, again, the power play is not the problem. The power play is a symptom of the problem
Yeah.
with this hockey team.
So the problem is Mitchell Marner's playing in Vegas. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to talk about
Yes.
that. And the second
Yes.
part of the problem is they never identified the need for a power play quarterback. They
Mhm.
thought that Morgan Riley was going to be able to do that. That's not Morgan's thing. And they should have
Yeah.
known that from all the years of service. So they desperately need to do something to address that. Yeah, their schematics good with the skill of Tavares, the skill of Matthews, the skill of Nylander. I get all that stuff. But if you don't have somebody that can run the power play, you're going to have a problem. Washington Capitals for years and years and years had a great power play, and it wasn't run by their defenseman. It was run by Nicholas Backstrom,
Yeah.
and he was really good at it. Pittsburgh, for most of this years, had the number one power play in the league. It's been run by Eric Carlson, and when he doesn't want to run it, 87 runs it. They don't have anybody in Toronto running their power play right now, and they got to figure that out pretty quick.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, uh, the timing of the firing is unfortunate, seasonally
Yeah.
speaking. I'm sure he'll be fine. He'll definitely end up somewhere else if he wants to. But this team, I don't know that that was any way a motivator for them. If anything, it may have served as a bit of a wake up call that, hey, we got no untouchable bodies here.
Yeah.
Someone needs to take accountability to turn the ship around. And since they say in the media, Berube's untouchable, maybe it's a wake up call to some of these players. I thought Matthews was quiet tonight, but he wasn't bad by any stretch. I thought
Yeah.
Matt Nice stuck out to me as the one who wasn't great. But again, let's go back to that Domi goal because there's always been this talk that he needs to shoot the puck more. And there was a play where they had a 3-on-1 earlier in the game where he basically just stick handled for 11 minutes and got a mediocre sort of shot off. Now, I think that was played fairly well by, I don't know who the defenseman was back on that
I think it
play.
was Parker Wotherspoon. I'm pretty sure it was
Yeah, I
Parker.
kind of forced them into that, didn't he? But he certainly didn't make that mistake when he went on that rush later in the game.
No, no. Again, I thought that was a hockey sense goal. He
Yeah,
identifies that Kulak's a left shot playing on the right side, and I'm sure probably somebody in the ice said, "Take him, take him, take him," and he
yeah,
took him, and he did a good job with it. That was great for Max. I was happy for Max. They needed that, and Kyle, as they put the schedule up, this next game on the 27th with Ottawa,
big
home
game.
on a Saturday night against a team that thinks they're going to pulverize you. This is where this game, we talked about baby steps. This game tonight has to propel you into that game, and you can't let your guard down. You cannot if you're Toronto, because if you do, Ottawa's playing really well. And their top line right now, I can tell you, with Zetterlund, with Stutzla, and with Kachuk, they're running roughshod over people. I don't know what they do with Buffalo tonight, but I'm telling you right now, if you don't have an idea of how to play that line, you're not going to beat Ottawa. I'm telling you, Brady's at another level right now.
Ottawa is definitely a step on from the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, most teams
Yes.
in the National Hockey League are right now, but the Leafs can't worry about who they're beating. They need to worry
Nope.
about getting 2 regulation points as often as possible so they can at least have a sniff at this race because they ain't winning a division this year.
No.
There would be some miracle sort of turnaround, but they can make the playoffs still. They can. I believe this hockey team can get there, but we are singing a different tune from the start of this year. And the Detroit Red Wings immediately after that, they're no slouch either. They match up really well against this Toronto team.
And Todd McClellan's going to want to come back, and he's good buddies with Mike Babcock, so he remembers what happened with Babcock in Toronto, and coaches remember that stuff. But also they're well coached. Detroit's a really well coached team. Berube knows that. Their young defense has really started to go. Sandine Pellikka has been excellent for them. Moritz Seider's played outstanding for them. Simon Edvinsson has been awesome for them. So now Detroit's really starting to go, and they got a big game tonight with Dallas. Huge game tonight with Dallas.
Yeah, there's what I think 14 games across the league tonight
It's a
before all
big
radio
night.
silence
Yeah.
tomorrow. And that's exciting, right, for the team. It's exciting for me because, as I mentioned to you before, my family party's tomorrow on the day where there's nothing scheduled. I have Christmas Day free to watch all the sports I want, Pierre.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Leafs hockey team. I mean, an afternoon game like today, it tends to throw rhythm off, but let's not pretend this team has found any sort of a rhythm. Any little intangible they can grab and take advantage of like this, whether it is a weaker team like Pittsburgh coming into their barn and rolling over them as they did today, rolling over strong. I apologize to the viewers, but they closed out a game in which they participated for 3 full periods. Where coming up down the season, how do they build off little games like this? Like, what's the conversation in the locker room after a win like tonight, where frankly there aren't a lot of strong negative takeaways? I'm sure Nyes will be spoken to privately, but there's no need to address that in front of the room. But what's the conversation in the dressing room today?
It's just another step forward, fellas. Let's remember what we did that we liked, and let's continue to build on it. I think the biggest thing, though, the coach needed to make a difference in this game, and he did by some of the
Yeah.
lines that he put together. I admire that. Now just keep pushing it forward. And again, another big step, getting Christopher Tanev back helped a lot. It really made a difference.
It really did. I think just his presence on the ice, they
Mhm.
know on the ice that the type of hockey he will play, started to play tonight, will eventually play at full strength and at his full capacity over the course of the next couple of games. So
Agreed.
desperately needed by a team that's just having trouble positionally moving the puck. And it's exciting for the teammates to know they're getting closer to a full lineup, and that's the big thing too. They really haven't had that a lot this season from between the pipes out on the forward, the defensive lines. There's been injuries all across the board.
There have been. And the other thing too, I wanted to say just a little quiet shout out. Scott Lawton and Lawrence and Dakota Joshua, I thought those guys, unheralded players, all of them, but they had a presence. You could feel it. Lawrence, the great goal after the bad turnover by Eric Carlson, and he never quit on the play. I really like the way those guys are starting to become what I think the Leafs wanted at the beginning. To change the DNA, you got to have those robust, stout guys deeper in your lineup that can make a difference. And I think Dakota's starting to get it. Scotty Lawton's definitely starting to get it. And I think Lawrence, this was a huge step forward for him tonight.
Okay, and then while we're calling out what I thought were heroes for tonight, I thought Myers took excellent advantage of being back in the lineup tonight. He was all over the ice. He was making his presence felt. And for a guy that's had trouble staying in the lineup, I thought that was a big step for him tonight, proving he can belong with this team full time.
I like that because the physicality that he can bring to the party is good, and he can play the right side or the left side. Obviously, a left-hand shot, but he can play both sides of the ice. But I like what you just said about him because he took advantage of an opportunity that maybe wouldn't have been presented again, but injuries have allowed that to happen. So good for him for taking advantage of the opportunity.
Okay, Pierre, we've covered the game pretty well now, but I want to shift gears because it is December the 23rd. I have a very random question to ask you. Do
Yes.
NHL players and teams typically participate in some sort of a secret Santa?
Yes.
They do. How does that look at the pro level? Is it just Rolexes and like what are they
Well,
handing out each other?
they're usually gag gifts.
I would imagine so, right?
And
With a
so,
limit
but
of
the real good gifts, and back in the day when I was doing, where there weren't a lot of millionaires, the owners would provide sometimes 2 first-class tickets to each player and coach, anywhere in the world. Sometimes there'd be, great sound systems that everybody would get. Sometimes there would be watches, but the owners back in the day when I was coaching in particular, they treated the front office people and the players really well when it came to Christmas time. And
that's
so,
good too.
but usually with Secret Santas, they're usually very good gag gifts.
Well,
I'm not sure we can
would it,
talk about them on the air.
yeah, well, of course not. I'll be texting you about it later. But would the coaching staff have their own, or would they mix with the players on that? Like how
No,
would there be
usually
some?
on the Secret Santas, it depended on how comfortable the team was and how tight they were.
Fair
Usually
enough.
the players did the players and the coaches had some fun with each other. I used to, and I'm not kidding you, I used to buy ties for my staff or the people that I worked with and our trainers. So every year, like I'd go to a different tie shop and I'd buy like 15 or 20 ties and I'd give them out to the staff. But that was my one thing that I like to do. And I think my mom actually told me to do that a long time ago. So I just always did that.
Listen, I can never have enough ties. My favorite Secret Santa gift I ever got was one of my great friends. He drew my name in a Secret Santa, and he gave me a pair of socks that were nothing but pictures of his head all over the socks, top and bottom. And I'm like, okay, that's a gag, but I still break them out once a year as some sort of surprise. Sort of just
Oh,
it's
that's
a good
good.
time. So Pierre, listen, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they put together 3 periods of hockey tonight. They came away with 2 regulation points. Guys that need this, the biggest takeaway for me is that you got Tanev back in the lineup, and guys that needed to get on the score sheet got on the score sheet tonight.
Yeah. And they got 2 points.
Yeah.
And they beat a team that they had to beat. So you put it all
Yes.
together. They didn't when it was 3-3, they didn't panic. That's when they started to take over the game again. So there's a lot of little stuff you can take out of this. I'm smiling more today. I feel better today than I did yesterday when we were talking about the Leafs. So this is a little baby step forward and build
Yeah.
off it when you play Ottawa on Saturday night.
Fair is fair, Pierre. When they've been bad, we've let them hear it, and when they've been good, it's important to acknowledge it, because if you just stay neutral and watch what the way the game presents to you, there are positive signs I hope the fan base can take from this, but I know this fans in Toronto, and either way, they're panicking. That's just how this works. It's just, listen, it's an emotional roller coaster being a Toronto Maple Leaf hockey fan. I feel for all of you folks, but hang in there. There's a lot of talent on this roster.
Mhm.
They could string a couple together, or they could lose 8-1 Saturday night. We'll see. Hard to say. Anyhow, Pierre, thank you for joining me here on Toronto Sports Rush, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Of course, I think I'm going to see you a little later in the week. But before we go, I have to plug something, because you, EJ Raddick, and Dan did an excellent Olympic roster show today. How much fun was that to do? I listened to it in the car on my way home from my parents, and I thought your guys' breakdown of what's likely to happen with that roster was so much fun.
Well, you're so kind to say that. I had a ton of fun. I love working with obviously all of our teammates at Bet Rivers. But I think the biggest thing to come out of the Olympics is going to be can't for Canada anyway. It's going to be how great they're going to be offensively. You know, Kyle, they're going to be one of the most enjoyable teams to
Yeah.
watch offensively that we've seen in a very, very, very long time. The skill level is insane of their offensive
Off the
capability.
charts. As usual, they could put together two teams, but they won't. So I feel for the selectors. Folks, if you want to hear more of that conversation, and it was a good one, look on the channel. It was posted earlier today with EJ, Dan, and Pierre. For now, Toronto Maple Leafs skate off the ice with 2 points, something they haven't been able to say a lot lately after playing 3 pretty solid periods of hockey, defeating the Pittsburgh Penguins at home. On to Ottawa they go. On behalf of Pierre McGuire, I'm Kyle Andrew. Thanks for joining us.